Anatomy of a Fall has been making its rounds on the cinematic circuit following its Palme d'Or win at the Cannes Film Festival last May. And though it struggles somewhat with pacing and visual charm, it certainly reignites the courtroom drama from a powerful and intriguing perspective. But before I get further into it, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and switching on notifications, as it really helps us out. In many ways, Anatomy of a Fall is boring. The first good chunk of the film is spent trying to understand a conversation drowned in incessant diegetic music. Furthermore, much of the film is spent in a rather plain-looking courtroom, governed by the color brown. Altogether, save a few picturesque snowy shots, much of the film's cinematography is uninspiring. Yet, don't let that deter you, as this film quickly redeems this lack of visual interest. Every location has a lived-in quality, especially the unfinished home and well-worn courtroom, because Anatomy of a Fall is about an ordinary family faced with an extraordinary situation, so its style conveys an everyday normality. The genius of the film lies in the interrogation that its main character and her son go through, which tears apart every nook and cranny of their life to reveal several conflicting viewpoints. One through the eyes of a successful woman navigating motherhood, another from a young child struggling to understand his parents as adults, and the third, which for me was the most startling, is what everyone else sees. This film makes you question what your life looks like from the outside, and what would happen if you were put on the stand. A review on Letterboxd by user Andre explains how, under the scrutiny of strangers, with all of our mistakes, failures, and mental health exposed, we can be judged as monsters. This is a perfect summary of what Anatomy of a Fall is about at its core. On the surface, it's just another courtroom drama, and there are plenty of those to watch, but I've never seen one quite like this. For example, take Legally Blonde, which in my eyes is still the best courtroom drama out there. It's one of those noughties classics that isn't over-eager in spreading its feminist theme, untarnished by the wokeness of today. Rather, it focuses on how a person can be underestimated for how they look and act, presenting Elle in such a way that doesn't undermine who she is. The success she has as a lawyer comes as no surprise, but the way she uses her own experience is very clever. I also recently watched A Time to Kill, which, like many courtroom dramas, uses the genre as a vehicle to present wider societal issues, in this case racism and prejudice in America. The interesting thing about that film is that it presents a clearly guilty individual, with the jury forced to decide on whether the punishment fits the crime on multiple levels, interrogating the very foundations of what makes America, well, America. Both of these films, and most from the genre, have the lawyer as the protagonist, and I struggle to remember or find examples of where the protagonist is actually the person being put on trial. There is Kramer versus Kramer, but the husband is actually there to defend himself, and it's more about the family drama. Please comment below if you have any examples for me to look at. Another film that comes to mind is The Trial of the Chicago 7, which I reviewed a while ago. But in that case, it's a group of people charged with conspiracy by the government, so the stakes are worlds apart from Anatomy of a Fall, where it's a marriage that's being torn apart and analysed. This focus on such an intimate relationship is what makes the film so phenomenal, and why I gave it the second spot in my top 10 films of last year. It's so simple but brilliantly unique, and Sandra strikes a perfect balance between likable and unlikable. We're never really sure if she did it, even by the end, but that's not the point of the film, as her lawyer explains. Having her as the protagonist creates conflict in the audience, as we are stuck playing both the accused and the judge. As we learn details about our protagonist, our opinion of her changes, but precisely because she is our protagonist, I at least wanted her to win. My favorite part is when her work as a novelist is brought into the investigation. Of course, any form of media or art is connected with the person creating it. However, whether it be the representation of their life story, an expression of their hobbies, or an outlet for the very antithesis of their being, there's commonly an element of exaggeration. To put it another way, I found that artists of every medium often condense time when telling their stories. For example, films aren't often linear to the second. Unless you're making something like Warhol's 8-hour-long film Empire, featuring a single shot of the Empire State Building to quote, "see time go by." Now, I'm being reductive, but hopefully you get my point. When Sandra's work is put under the microscope and treated as fact, it puts into question the very sanctity of art as a response to life. And Justine Triet didn't stop there, because not only is Sandra's life ripped apart, so is that of her blind son, Daniel, a heavily biased witness that, and I see the irony here, begins to see his parents for who they really are through the course of the trial, which is a heavy ask for a child. His memories are tested, and he's forced to find the cracks in his childhood. Then, when he takes it upon himself to recreate a vague memory from his past, for science, it's both heart-wrenching and heartwarming, as he's copying what the adults are doing in the trial, like when they recreate the events with dummies. When children are present in these types of situations, it's always fascinating to try and decipher if their words and actions are their own, or whether they are playing adults. I really enjoyed this, how Anatomy of a Fall leaves you questioning, but not in a Nolan via Inception big cliffhanger kind of way, but focused on the nuances of a relationship, and in questioning what people do and say, and why. Overall, Anatomy of a Fall may not be the prettiest Best Picture nomination of the year, but what it lacks in visual interest, it makes up for in phenomenal writing, directing, and acting, even down to the dog. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe and switch on notifications so you don't miss future videos, and comment below with your thoughts on the film. For more film content, feel free to follow us on Letterboxd and TikTok, links in the description. Otherwise, this has been Tea Break Film Reviews. My name's Michelle, and I hope you have a great day.